we had a group of probably a dozen or 15 houses that were under threat. They were getting ember attack, and they're in the heart of Paralawi. That was not a bushfire suburb, and suddenly they're getting ember attack.
This is Legends with Bevo, thanks to Anytime Fitness Glenelg and Renelec Electrical Services.
This episode of Legends with Bevo is proudly sponsored by Kookaburra Homes. Kookaburra Homes have been awarded South Australia's most professional home builder 2 years in a row. They're a true SA success story and are passionate about other South Australians sharing their success stories. Well, MFS Commander, CFS volunteer and rally driver Declan Dwyer, great to have you on Legends with Bevo. What a pleasure it is. Mate, tell us what made you decide to become a fiery and your passion for it.
Look, it was probably, I was late teenage years and was probably one of many, many hundreds of or thousands of kids that didn't really know what I wanted to do. When I was living at home, I live in a CFS area. I was up at Coromandel Valley at the time, and I joined the CFS there because I wanted to give back to the community and didn't just fell in love with the industry, and it's just that the opportunity to be able to get out and help people who are having pretty much the worst day of their lives, and the rest of it meant something to me. It was really special. So I then sort of worked out, hey, there's actually a career that does this as well. So from that moment on, I kind of knew that's what I wanted to do, and so put my heart and soul into that. And I had some friends up there who were in the MFS as well, and they were able to give me a bit of a heads up, I suppose, on just how much effort it takes to get into the job. And so as a result, I put everything into it and was lucky enough to get in. So and then as you said, still to this day in the CFS as well. So just loving it.
I can just see the passion, and we spoke about this off air as well. It's just awesome to see someone who just loves their job so much and you can't wipe the smile off your face, which is just terrific. How did those first few days go in the job? Did they meet your expectations? Or?
Oh, look, when you first start in the MFS, you go into what's known as Drill Squad, which is a 3.5-month training program, and so you don't go to fire calls in that time. This is basically where you learn the craft, and it's just this absolute barrage of information. Like basically you are, if you're either asleep or you are thinking, leaving, breathing MFS stuff, it's just fire service stuff the whole time. And so it's just this huge amount of information that you've got to absorb because down the track you're going to need it. So but then after you've finished your program, you then come out onto the fire trucks, and that you're then kind of classed as somebody who's basically knows nothing, and you get on the back of the truck and you open your eyes and ears and you close your mouth and you learn. And it's now you get to do, you've done all of the theory type stuff before, but now you're adding experience, and experience is everything, particularly in this job, because the stuff that we see on a fairly regular basis cannot be simulated. So when you're sitting in the back of the truck for the first time, man, the nerves were right there, because you're in the back of a truck and you get turned out to a house fire or something along those lines, and you think, well, I'm actually about to stand in front of someone's house on fire, and it's up to me to fix that, to stop that, and they're going to be desperate when you get there and all of that sort of thing. And you can feel that pressure, you know that's going to be something that you have to perform at. There's no chances for second best and all of that sort of thing. And then, once you've been to that fire and another one and another one, you start picking up things, and that experience really comes in to help you in your career.
And you were there as well as on the front line for the three major fires in the last couple of years, which was the KI, the Cudlee Creek, and the recent Cherry Gardens fires. The CFS was the leading agency, which is just wonderful to see them doing so well. We'll get to them in a moment, the great stuff they do in the community. But talk to us, being on that front line and the feeling, the adrenaline must have gone through being there.
Yeah, look, those three fires, we got to, as you said, the CFS called MFS up for backup and just adding numbers to the fire and be into the whole structure. And then, but to get there, the weather conditions on the day, particularly at Cudlee Creek, were just off the scale. That wind that was just driving the fire faster than the trucks can drive sometimes. We had to move really, really quickly, sort of, just to keep people safe. We were, desperate to try and keep buildings and assets and things like that safe. And it was something that, we absolutely had to, you've got to keep your wits about you and those sort of things, because that's where bush firefighting varies, I suppose, from structural firefighting, is that you've got to take a position of defence as well, in that you're driving into the next place that could be on fire. And so, whereas if we, go structural firefighting, we pull up out front of what is on fire and we try and put it out, if you know what I mean. So, so you've absolutely got to have your wits about you the whole time. because all you need is a wind change or something along those lines, and you could be in real strife. So having your wits about you is absolutely paramount. And so Cudlee Creek and Cherry Gardens fires were they were pretty crazy in the first few hours, but then KI kind of stayed like it for weeks. There was so much work over there to be done, and it was all for quite some time. It was dangerous work. It was we had to be really careful.
Yeah, I drove up through the Adelaide Hills afterwards, and just seeing the devastation was absolutely horrific. But I must say, you guys did an amazing job, and imagine all the homes and all the livestock that would have been lost if you guys didn't do what you did. So congratulations on that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think in Cherry Gardens in particular, the firefight that was going on up there, the CFS set it up really quickly, and what was incredibly complicated because they had, I think it was 6 or 8 fires all started at the same time. And they had to sort of organise who was at what fire, and then expand each command and control structure and all that sort of stuff, and then populate them with the the resources required. And it was just this massive game of chess under huge pressure. And at the end of it, to having only lost 2 houses in a nearly 3,000 hectare fire right in the heart of the Adelaide Hills, I think the guys from all services just really they should be patted on the back for that for sure.
And the CFS plays such a big part in the community. You're a volunteer, as we spoke about earlier, Declan, which is wonderful that you're involved in that as well as being an MFS commander. Don't know how you have time to be a rally driver as well.
My wife rolls her eyes a lot.
But, talk to us through the involvement and the great thing that the CFS does, within the community.
Look, I think that's one of the things I'll say for the CFS, being a part of that for over 30 years now. I've been in the CFS, and is one thing that you can never question them is their commitment to the community. Fires like the Cherry Gardens and Cudlee Creek and all the rest of that gets lots and lots of attention, and there's heroic type words bandied around and all that sort of stuff. But for me, a lot of times the heroes are also the ones that get out of bed at 3 o'clock in the morning when they know they've got to go to work the next morning to go to a car prank. Or a private fire alarm that's gone off in a house somewhere. It's a accidental activation and stuff like that. They still do it. They get up, they go because their community needs them, and there's not going to be any glamour. They're going to get there and they realise that steam from a shower set their head off or whatever it happens to be, but they did it and they continue to do it, and that's what makes me really proud to be part of the CFS as well. It's just these people, they're so community minded. It's fantastic.
I don't reckon they get the award and the recognition that they deserve because, like I've just mentioned, these people are actually putting their lives on the line. They give up a job, they give up seeing their family, just to help people out. I think that's just a wonderful thing that doesn't get that credit they deserve.
I went to New South Wales and the bushfires over there as well last year, so that was quite a hectic season, as everyone would probably be aware. And I remember chatting to one of the CFS firefighters was I reckon she's from Malang, and she had worked nearly 24 hours a day on her farm down there to set it up so as she could then have a heap of farm hands come in and run the place for the 5 days she was in New South Wales. She then worked in New South Wales and then went home and then picked up the farm and ran that again for another 5 days and then went back to New South Wales. So she had condensed and turned her life upside down to go to New South Wales to help out, do her part, and she did that based on the fact that we knew that if the fire was in her area, same as for me in Bolivar where I'm at, that the help from New South Wales would be here as well. It's sort of a service-wide, statewide, inter-service-wide, national, international family that everyone will just help out anyone when they need it. It's almost an honour to be a part of. I'm gushing now, but but it's quite an amazing thing to be a part of.
I love it. And I can just see your passion as well. It's wonderful. And let's talk about rally car driving, because another thing you do, I honestly don't know, your wife must never see you at all.
Yeah. That's when we first got into that, she was a part of it. So in fact, she still is now. But
that's good. And so that's something you can share as a common interest. Tell us more about the rally car driving and your love for that.
I compete reasonably regularly in the South Australian Rally Championship, and also when I can in the Australian Rally Championship. We've had a bit of success. We've won 3 state championships over the last 20 odd years or 15 years or something, and we sort of puddle around now when the time is right and all that sort of thing. We're not quite as serious about it anymore, but at the same time, we still rank pretty highly as a team, and on the Australian, they have a driver performance index and that sort of thing. So we get out and have a lot of fun, and that's led to a few opportunities and things like that as well. But it's it's good to be a part of that sort of community as well. You know, that it's a friendly community, but sporting as well.
I'm noticing a very common interest or common theme there of thrills.
Yeah.
Being a fire and a rally car driver,
Yeah, that's
two
it.
pretty, death-defying sort of things you're doing there.
Yeah,
Declan,
look,
so-
yeah, that's it. It's I mean, the good thing about the all of these things is that that they are to a certain extent they can be perceived as dangerous. But as a result of that, safety precautions are put in place to make these things safe. You know, you simply, if there's anything that's going to in motorsport, if there's anything that's going to challenge safety or say, that's not quite safe enough, it doesn't run. There's no options, and that's where, motorsport becomes a much, much safer option than just fanging on the roads and things like that, which is, that's what we all say both at work and here in rallying as well.
You've led me to my next question, road safety awareness, which is really important, especially because we see so many young hoon drivers losing their lives these days and doing stupid things. And so it's all about now encouraging those teenagers to race on the racetrack, not on the roads, with the road safety awareness campaign. You're going out to schools doing a wonderful job. Explain more about this, Declan.
Yeah, look, it's absolutely gut-wrenching when we see, teenagers and young people, who have been taken in circumstances like that when they're, they've been doing silly things on the road, and because it's frustrating. It needs to be stopped, and there's ways around that. That's why we say if you're going to, if you have a passion or an interest in testing your skills and abilities in a car or driving fast or whatever it happens to be that drives you, there's a safe way of doing it, and it's not that hard. It's really not. People say, it's going to cost me millions to get into V8 supercars or something like that. There is grassroots motorsport that you can get into for less than $100, and it's safe. It's there's all of the safety and things that you need are right then and there, and you get to do it genuinely. You don't have to worry about a policeman over your shoulder or anything along those lines. So that's one thing that we, from the motorsport perspective, will be pushing that all the time. Come and do it. Come and do it. Grassroots motorsport and the rest of it. But then, of course, my crossover is into the fire service, which is where we're part of the road awareness program. Is that we'll go out and talk to year 11s and 12s in schools and things like that, and just show them just how important this new skill is. I remember when we first started in presenting in the road awareness program, I used to be able to go along and say to these students, the rest of it, every time you learn a new skill throughout your life. And so you're in your baby, you start to learn to crawl, and then you learn to walk, and then you learn to ride a bike, and then a skateboard or climb trees or whatever it is you do. Every one of those things you do, you're very likely to make a little mistake, right? And that little mistake you make has consequence. Like, for example, when you're learning to walk, if you make a mistake, you fall over. Probably no injury, very little consequence indeed. But now when you learn to ride a bike as a 6 or 7-year-old, right, if you make a mistake there, you're going to take some skin off, right? You could take your elbow or knee or whatever it happens to be. So the consequence is slightly bigger, but funnily enough, the mistake is the same size, right? But now as a brand new car driver, if you make the same mistake, this is the first time you're going to do it where the consequences could be fatal, right? Therefore, no second chance, right? So that's where one of the mottos of the RAP program is that you can choose the mistake, or you can and you can't choose the consequences, right? So that's one thing we're trying to get across to these people is you can't take those chances, So we're very passionate about trying to get people to just change that little attitude, I suppose, when it comes to driving on the road. You've got to embrace that maturity. You've got to hold on to it.
So important, and I love the work that you guys are doing. Keep that up.
Yeah. It's sort of something that we're all very passionate about because we've all seen many times over the wrong end of it. Some of the crashes that I've seen at work and in the CFS, and others have seen the rest of it are just horrendous. You get asked about them, and when you hear yourself reciting what you've seen, the injuries people have, and the damage that's been done, and the rest of it, it's just mind blowing. There's nothing that can injure you quite like a high speed car accident. It's just incredible.
You're right, and I think it's so important to go out and preach to the young ones, because before they get behind the wheel, that's the most important. Get in their ears what they can do and the consequences that can lead to that from their actions doing the wrong thing. I think that's so important. So the RAP program is really good for that, and I just love that.
That's it. And there is a generation of people who are interested in either going fast or high performance cars or whatever it happens to be. And I would say there's nothing wrong with that, but you have to apply that safely. If you like the idea, if you've been watching the Fast and the Furious movies and you want to do that, there's a way you can do that. Go drifting. It's, there's racetracks around that will, bring that out, and you can refine your skills, and you can, learn from others that are out there. But if you just try it on a windy hills road somewhere, it's just going to end in tears. I guarantee it.
Especially those slippery roads as well. I used to play footy in Birdwood, and those roads can be so slippery driving up there and that sort of thing. And
just no room for a mistake.
So narrow as well, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
And now for the people that are listening or watching today, Declan, what sort of advice do you have for those that might be interested in joining the fire brigade?
Okay. So look, I would 100%, encourage you to do so. It's, once it's the sort of job that, we commonly refer to it as the winning the job lottery. This is a fantastic job. It is very competitive. And so therefore, if you think about your intake process, which could take many months, 6 months or more, if you think about that after you've completed it, and there's something that you could look back on it and honestly say there's something I could have done better, then you haven't tried hard enough. Right? You absolutely need to leave no stone unturned to make sure your effort is bang on point, because you don't have to compete with all the other fireys that are already in the job. You've got to compete against the 1,500 other people. And, realistically, if you think about 1,500 people applying, maybe the top 1,000 could do the job, right? But they're only going to take 50 or 60. So that's where you've got to be at the top of that game. So fitness is a big thing. There's a lot of information on the MFS website, but things like you've got to be able to, lift certain weights, and you've got to be able to get to 9.6 on the beep test, and you've got to, have movement skills and that sort of thing. Then you've obviously got, it comes back closely aligned to sort of year 12, sort of comprehension and mathematical abilities and English abilities and all of those sort of things. So, look, you don't have to be a brain surgeon to be able to do it, but you do need to be able to study, learn, be interested in what you're doing, be fit, strong, smart. And it's hard to explain exactly, but one of the things that I like to probably talk to people about is to say that you've almost got to want to be the champion. And if you think about, a game of footy or something like that, the final siren's gone, your team's 5 points down, and you've got a free kick at the 50-yard line. Right, the champion on the team is the guy who wants the kick. Right, it doesn't matter whether he gets it or not. The champion's the guy who wants the kick. And if you're that sort of person, then you'll be bang up for the fire service. It's the sort of thing. You're the person who wants to step up when the pressure is on. That's the person who's going to save the day. So, if you're that mentality, then I reckon you'd have half a shot.
And obviously the CFS is another one that's people can get involved in that, and you're always encouraging people to be volunteers.
100%. Yeah. And look, I find a lot of CFS brigades are do have a call out for people. Where I'm at the moment, we're very lucky in that we've got quite a good number of people. But look, you don't have to be. So the CFS and MFS recruiting is different, I suppose, in that the CFS, it's that volunteer spirit, which becomes really the big one, because what we don't need in the CFS is people who, they love the idea of being on the TV or, in the front page of the paper, fighting these massive fires and all of that sort of stuff. But, and then they come along, they join up, they get given all of the PPE and training and all that sort of stuff, and then they never come into anything. They don't come to fire calls, and because, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, I was fast asleep or whatever. The CFS doesn't, that just holds us back. We have a brigade of 30 or 40 people, and, you've got 30 or 40 people that don't really want to get out of bed at night, then you're in a bit of strife. So that's where that spirit of volunteerism is massive in the CFS, that selflessness. And I think that, you'll find people that have been in the CFS for a long time, they're really, really good at that.
And again, it comes down to that passion and the love. And if you're doing something you love, it's just wonderful, isn't it? And making a difference in the community.
Yeah, look, it really is. And they take pride in the community. And the funny thing is, the further out, I mean, we're obviously in the Adelaide Hills, and the communities are, they're more populous. And as a result, it's not a case if everybody knows everybody that much by comparison to a lot of, say, further outlying townships and things like that. But back there, you really are protecting your own backyard. It goes back to the way the CFS kind of started, which, however many years ago it was, when they, they just decided there was groups of people, groups of farmers that just sort of said, what we should do is get together to protect everybody's property with one single set of equipment. So someone would donate a truck, and someone would donate some milk tunes to put water in, and someone would get some strip beaters out and stuff like that, and we'd put them all on the truck. And whenever there was a fire, we'd all go get the truck, and we'd all go to whoever's house was on fire, property or whatever, and that's where it sort of grew from. It's basically these these like-minded people all protecting their own community. And the further out you go, you still see that, and we see that regularly now.
In terms of, we love the banter and stuff with sporting clubs, and we spoke about this off air as well. Is there a fair bit of banter in the fire brigade with the men and women that within the community as well?
Yeah, look, there is. I mean, it is the funniest thing sometimes. Just that, being a part of it is just hilarious. And there's the guys and the guys and girls, they're so quick. Their humour is fantastic, and it's just the sort of thing that brings that family together. And that's both CFS and MFS. You'll find it. After a CFS training night, everyone will sort of sit around the table having a barbecue or whatever, and the banter's right there. And same with the MFS station, lunch times, whatever. It's just it's that real family spirit that I sort of talked about before. And it's almost to the point where you could go and sit down in any fire station around the world, as long as you speak the language, you'd be a part of the banter. It's so much fun.
One big happy family, which is terrific.
So, it really is. Yeah.
If I wasn't scared of heights, I reckon I'd be applying to be in the fire brigade.
Oh, mate, we'd be happy to have
you. So it'd be a lot of fun. Now, we spoke about this off air as well before. A couple of days ago, we saw the Bolivar fires, and it was only 23 degrees, and it makes you realise that people just can't be complacent, because even though it's not 40, it's not 45, and we haven't been having that same heat this week as we have in previous years, like with the KI fires and the Hills fires and that sort of thing. I guess it did sort of make us realise is that it doesn't matter what sort of temperature the weather is. If there's wind around, it can start a fire, and that's exactly what happened with Bolivar. And it is sort of advice for people that, in terms of that are in those bushfire areas, for their bushfire plans and that sort of thing, Declan?
Yeah, look, the CFS website is an absolute wealth of information, and so that's sort of something that if you live in a bushfire area, that you absolutely should be familiar with. Just have a look through it. There's a 5-minute bushfire plan. It's a thing that help you guide you what you're going to do. Bolivar, it was interesting yesterday. I went to that myself, and we had a group of probably a dozen or 15 houses that were under threat. They were getting ember attack, and they're in the heart of Paralawi. That was not a bushfire suburb, and suddenly they're getting ember attack. So you don't really need to live in a bushfire-prone area to be attacked by a bushfire. Now, this one was only 5 hectares, so that's only reasonably small in bushfire terms. And but at the same time, the potential was there, and that was because whilst it's only 23 degrees, no one expected bushfire on that sort of day, but the wind was what drove it to something crazy, and it took off. It did take a bit of effort to get on top of it, and crews from both CFS and MFS were there for probably about 6 hours, I suppose, making sure that everything was safe. But I think getting prepared, if the further into the rural urban interface or the hills that you live, then you've really got to have a plan, and your plan is perfectly adequate, perfectly reasonable to go. You say, I'm going to go, and if you're going to go early, because of the fact the last thing we need is people evacuating with adrenaline and ill prepared, and right when emergency services are trying to get in to chase something down or whatever it happens to be. So if you're going to go early. Now, if you're planning to stay, that's also valid. You can do that too, but you've got to make sure that you're prepared for what you're going to encounter. Lots of information on the website, as I mentioned, about that. But one thing that I usually add my own personal twist to that is if you're going to stay, you'll also have to have a plan for failure. What are you going to do if you can't defend your house? Right. So how are you going to save yourself? Because I think there's a lot of people out there tend to assume I'm going to stay and defend my house, that they'll be successful. Right? But you just got to have a plan to make sure that you're going to be able to save yourself, even if you can't save your house. And if you haven't got that, then you've got no choice but to go.
Great advice, because there are people out there that do try and be heroes and think, oh, this fire's, I can handle it, but then they realise how powerful the fire can be, and with strong winds as well.
Correct, that's right.
Can just turn so quickly. So
there's generally 2 ways that a structure will burn down in the face of a bushfire. One of which is just where the fire front just burns up to the structure and burns it down. So and that's direct fire impact or radiant heat, etc., etc. The other way is by ember attack. Ember attack it's not impossible to defend your house from ember attack. You just got to be vigilant, and it could go for as long as 24 hours. You might be getting embers from a fire that's 5 k's away. Now, when an ember lands, it starts a little fire that's only a few centimetres high, and that's the sort of thing that you could put out with a mop bucket. But if you're not there, then you can't put it out. So that's why a lot of the thing I'm going to stay and defend comes from. I can put that out. Right, but if you are in an area where you are, the bushland surrounding your house is likely to bring that direct fire impact up to your house, then that's hard to defend with a fire truck. So
scary stuff.
Yeah, so you've got to be able to anticipate what's gonna land at your doorstep, and then work out what you're going to do before it happens.
Wonderful advice. And before we let you go, Declan, I always love to do this for a bit of fun. I guess, past and present, 3 famous people that you'd love to have dinner with. Who would they be and why?
Oh, past and present. I reckon I've always been a fan of Dr. Karl Kruszelnicki. He would be fascinating to sit down and have a chat with. I reckon that there'd be some. I'm sort of a bit fascinated by the whole science thing and that sort of stuff. So people like Neil deGrasse Tyson and of that ilk would be certainly good. But then also being a motor racing fan, Peter Brock. He'd have to be fantastic to sit down and have a drink with.
Yes, I think you've nailed that one well,
Yeah.
especially. But obviously, it's very sad what happened with him being a rally car driver as well when it happened. It's just horrific, and he'll always be remembered as one of the greats.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic bloke.
Speaking of greats, what a pleasure it's been to have you today, Declan Dwyer, MFS Commander on Legends with Bevo, and a big shout out to Nicole Ely, Media and Communications, doing a great job down there, who organised the interview, and Rory Noke, as always, from PodBooth. Thanks so much to you, and we look forward to speaking again in the future, Declan.
Absolutely, and thank you very much for having me.
Sounds so good.